What if I told you that the future of Middle East and Arab states might be completely different to their past? At the end of this video, I'm going to make my bold prediction how I see this region could evolve. Hi, here is Markku Wilenius, your traveling futurist. When I moved to Dubai in 2020, just before the pandemic times, I was struck by one perception. And that perception was that here in Dubai, people from all over this region we call Middle East were joining to build a community with various backgrounds. And of course, it was not only Middle East, it was also a lot of Asian folks coming from Pakistan, coming from India and Philippines and so on. And of course, also us Europeans and people from America. But later, when I started to get more involved with understanding how this region has worked and emerged, it also struck me by how many conflicts there have been inside the Arab world. So I became curious that what is the cause of these internal conflicts? What can be done with them? Because if we think about the future, any region in the world cannot proceed to a full prosperity before they can settle down their conflicts and live more peacefully and harmony with each other, as I saw them already doing here in Dubai. One source of the conflict here in the Arab region is naturally religion. And in this case, it's much about the differences between Shias and Sunnis. Sunnis are the overwhelming majority in the Arab world, while the Shias represent only something like a 10%. And they are mostly based in Iran and Iraq. Conflicts that are based on religion are always quite fundamental conflicts that have their own history, and I'm not going back to that to look at them in a more detailed way. Where are the differences in terms of understanding the past, and in this case, the kind of inheritance of the Prophet Muhammad. But all I have to say is that when it comes to the present day Arab world, you cannot understand the current tensions without taking this religious aspect into account. Because as we see already from the past world, from the history, religion has often served as a tool and as a reason in a way to attack other countries. And this is something also where we can land on when we start to look the source and the origins of some of the conflicts that has been crippling this Arabic region. Let's take, for instance, the Iraq-Iran war that started in 1980 and extended until 1988, where Saddam Hussein, Iraq's new leader at those days, decided to take advantage of the fact that there had been revolution inside their neighbor country, Iran, and they wanted to expand their influence in Iraq and take some of the land that they thought that were historically their land. And of course, this is a reason that has been used repeatedly also in today's world, as we know well, that there are these historical claims to the territories. Now, this war between Iraq and Iran was not only totally useless in all sense of the word, but also didn't do any difference at the end. The only difference was that $1 trillion amount were spent in this war and terrible human devastation. But not only that, then after Saddam had to kind of accept the fact that they couldn't reach their goals, then he made the second attack this time to Kuwait in the early 90s. He was able to invade Kuwait, but then, of course, the other world was wakened, and then eventually United forces came to rescue Kuwait, and Iraq was pushed back. Again, no real advantage received from this absolutely useless war, but more disarray, more chaos, more conflict, and more poverty, certainly, to the region. So it goes in the history. There has been actually a huge decline when it comes to the living standards in this region ever since this conflict started. Actually, it started earlier already in Lebanon, where also Israel was heavily involved. But all these wars, and then, of course, after this first Iraq war came the second one, and there was, of course, heavy American involvement. Then came the Syrian wars. The conflicts in Lebanon continued, then became a Yemen war. In all of these wars, different Arab states took different positions. But what was the kind of a proxy conflict? The arch enemies in these games were quite often Iran, which is a Shia state, and then Saudi Arabia, which is a Sunni state. And this conflict got several repercussions, not leaving any country in the region sort of indifferent or neutral. They had to take their own position in this battle. Now we have been seeing lately some light at the end of the tunnel with the mediation of China, Iran, and Saudi Arabia could restore some of the diplomatic relationships. Lately also this happened also between Saudi Arabia and Qatar. Qatar was blamed by Saudis as well as UAE and Bahrain and Egypt to be a supporter of the Islamist groups in the region that had allegedly intention to make coup in some of those regimes, and they were heavily opposing that, quite natural. But now this tension has been kind of easing out a little bit, and to the extent that they have kind of a return back to diplomatic relationships. All in all, this shows that there is certain amount of progress, and this progress is complemented also by the relationship that has been emerging between Israel and some of the Arab countries, particularly United Arab Emirates, and then very recently with Saudis as well. And that provides the hope for the region because, as I said in the beginning, there is no way that this region is able to create a real sustainable prosperity unless these old and new conflicts get somehow resolved. There is a long history of conflict, but also a long history of united efforts to build something bigger together. We have to remember that these Arab cultures are very much being living after the nomadism by trade. And trading means that you are building relationships. There is also a lot of that type of the culture and the spirit, which actually necessitates and appreciates the collaboration and the partnership. Maybe in the future, we shall see how this region slowly get out of its turbulent past and start to build a true strength inside their regime, inside their territory, in such a way that they could have a very strong positive influence to outside world. Because what is particular about this part of the world is that even if we have been sort of used to hear a lot of bad and worrying news from this region has not really taken advantage of the fact that each and large area with a lot of kind of similar cultural backgrounds have a common language, Arabic language, and also common belief system. that being, of course, Islam. Now, all of this could actually do something positive for this region and build a kind of platform to expand the positive force which can become from here, which is that connecting also other parts of the world to this region, which in many ways stand in the middle of the world. And that has been, to some extent, already been shown by the example of the United Arab Emirates, how they have been able to build themselves to be this kind of a global trade and transport and tourist hub, really being an attractor in the region to bring different kinds of people, cultures, businesses, finances, all of that into the region, and has shown how much prosperity can be created out of this type of, I would say, ideology. So there is a potential there, a lot of potential when it comes to the future of this region. But in order to use that potential and show that potential, they have to be able to deal positively and constructively with their internal problems. If they are able to do that, my prediction is that this region can be a source of a new type of, I would say, ideology in the world where collaboration and harmony matters over antagonism and conflict, because they have so much to gain. And this is, of course, being already exampled by the European Union, but this region can do it in their own terms and in their own way. Build a kind of a next centerfold of our civilizations on this earth by showing that how we can move from the past to the very different kind of future.